yes, people getting sick and dying is always real. It's always occurred throughout history, and it will always continue to occur. But the question is why and from what? And that is not an equation that any sensible person will draw, saying, well, people are dying, so it must be the virus. That's not necessarily true at all. And what I've documented for the past 38 years is that if you look at different groups of people in different places around the world, you will see that they're getting sick and dying for different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And all of this is being relabeled and repackaged as... There are also some new clusters of cases which are not traditional old diseases such as tuberculosis and pneumonia and so on. And you have to investigate those individually, but very close up to see what's happening. For example, in the north of Italy, there were a couple of what I would call suspect vaccine campaigns shortly before the announcement of lockdowns in that part of the country. So that would be something different and new, but yet again, it would not be the purported virus that so many people are talking about.
John, and I say the average American death rate every year is almost 2.8 million Americans die of all causes. 2.8 million. So, we're talking about an inflated number of 150-some thousand people who they say have died because of COVID. And you and I both believe those numbers are inflated, don't we?
Yes, we do. Absolutely. And people have to have that perspective to understand what's going on. Because, let's face it, the public generally is very vulnerable to press publicity, especially when it's mouthed by so-called experts. So you can get a press report, 50 people have been diagnosed with X disease in some foreign land. And people will suddenly react. Well, 50 people are getting sick every hour in that foreign land from something.
From something else, exactly.
Yeah, so don't jump the gun and suddenly assume that you know exactly what this is.
My biggest gripe with the mainstream media was that at no point do they ever report on the seasonal flu deaths. Never comes up. Year in and year out, we get 20 to 50, 60,000 people die. Nobody ever reports that. This, they were giving us a daily count. 3 people have died, 25 people have died, 180 people have died. I mean, they scared the living daylights out of people. And look what's happened now. People are petrified.
Yes, people are petrified. And your point is extremely well taken. Because if you look at the official statistics on flu every single year, not just 1 year, if you were to go by those statistics, you would assume, looking at the so-called COVID picture now, that we would have lockdowns because of the flu every single year, when that's never been the case. In fact, if you buy into the complete germ theory as it's presented conventionally, the only way to defeat a germ and gain mass immunity is through exposure. That's traditionally how it happens. You can't lock down a population and expect that this is going to somehow contain things. It's just the opposite that's true. You burn it out through exposure and natural immunity.
I had a story of a guy who went into a casino in Vegas and they arrested him because he didn't have a mask on. You walk through a supermarket, you have to have a mask on. If you don't have a mask on, people panic and run away from you. I mean, that happened with me. I would go to the supermarkets in the early stages of this without a mask on before it became mandatory. And somebody be coming down the aisle with a mask on, John, they'd see me, they'd do a beeline and run away. And what does your research tell you about masks?
Well, excuse me, the masks are not effective. I recently published a study that was published by the CDC itself. This was a review of about 15 major studies over the years, many years, about transmission of flu viruses through masks, all kinds of masks. And the conclusion was there is no evidence that these masks would stop the transmission of flu viruses. It's just there. It's in the CDC's own published literature if people care to look at it. But of course, these governors and mayors and presidents and prime ministers and so forth are just ignoring any evidence whatsoever, and there's a mountain of it, and so they're mandating the masks. And to me, it's completely unconstitutional, it's completely illegal, it's against the whole nature and concept of liberty and freedom and privacy, and it's unscientific on top of all of that to boot.
And it sounds unhealthy. I mean, you're breathing in stale air.
Yeah, now that's a crucial point. Not only that, George, but imagine this. A person is breathing in and out all day long his own germs. All kinds of germs, in and out, and decreased levels of oxygen, which permit the growth of certain germs inside the body. So what happens is, over time, and it doesn't take very long, there's a major buildup in just the sheer population of all manner of germs in the human's body because of wearing a mask all day long. Now, as I pointed out earlier, the viral test, registers false positives like coins out of a rigged slot machine because it cross-reacts with irrelevant germs in the body. So wearing a mask actually contributes to more false positive results on these COVID-19 tests.
Now let's talk about vaccines, John. Of course, they don't have one. A lot of pharmaceutical companies are testing them right now with trials. Yeah, they're getting disclaimers that they're not going to be felt accountable if there's some danger after the fact, if a lot of people get sick or die because of the vaccine. So, they're getting immunity from that. What's your take on vaccines?
Very dangerous proposition here. First of all, it's certainly not going to work. People have to understand this. And again, I'm talking about the conventional literature, medical research. If you believe in the whole idea of vaccinations and what they're supposed to do, those researchers are now reporting that the immunity effects of people who have been infected are waning very quickly, which would mean that this suddenly attains the status of seasonal flu. In other words, you'd have to be vaccinated every year with boosters. Are you going to try to imagine the 7 billion people being vaccinated every year against
pharmaceutical company that comes up with it.
Indeed. And so then we look at that. Moderna, which is one of the leading companies with a candidate vaccine being backed by Anthony Fauci and Bill Gates and so on, they have never brought a product to market of any kind. I mean, this is absurd.
Where did they come from?
$500 million in federal funding to develop a COVID vaccine, and they have never brought a drug or vaccine product.
Jeez, who do they know?
Nothing. In fact, I would say less than nothing, because it could be very dangerous. Because what they are promoting is what's called an RNA vaccine. This is a technology which has never been approved and licensed for use on the public before. It involves really a method of injecting a part of a genetic sequence into the body, apparently to produce some immune reaction in the body. This could be devastating with genetic ripples throughout the body. Companies have tried to bring this technology to market before, and they failed because of serious adverse effects in clinical trials, mainly what they would call autoimmune reactions, which means essentially the body goes to war against itself. It recognizes itself as if it were the enemy. So there you have one of the leading candidates for a vaccine against COVID, which I shudder at the prospect of.
And in Moderna's original release a couple weeks ago of their test, they did admit that some people were getting bad reactions to this thing.
Indeed. Yes, they did. And they have done, again, conventional wisdom would have it that you must do animal studies in order to prove safety of the product. They have never been done. No company developing a vaccine is doing animal studies because it's warp speed. We have to do this thing immediately. Well, the dangers of vaccines under ordinary conditions, which are considerable, would be multiplied by a major factor.
Absolutely.
Russia to market.
Absolutely. Bill Gates, I don't think he's the devil everybody portrays him to be. But what's his interest in this? What is his involvement in this? I mean, he's got more money than he needs. He can't be doing this to make more, but what do you think his involvement is?
Well, he is an arch globalist, and he has said on several occasions that he believes the population should be locked down until a vaccine is available. I mean, if that were the case, considering the amount of devastation we've seen so far economically, I can't even begin to imagine the degree of harm and devastation that would occur worldwide.
Is he misguided?
I'm afraid I don't agree that it's simply misguided. I think that he wants to bring in a brave new world. He is a technocrat through and through. He believes, like others of his ilk, that this operation called COVID can be fastened upon in order to say to the world, we must never go back to the way things were. This is now the new normal. We are going to create a new technocratic society with wall-to-wall surveillance 24 hours a day, smart cities. Every citizen has a slot. Every citizen